Welcome to another episode of On the Issues with Alon Ben-Meir. Today we are joined by two guests, Alon Liel and Ziad AbuZayyad. Alon Liel is a veteran of the Israeli Foreign Ministry, serving in various positions, including as Director General of the Foreign Ministry, and as a member of the Israeli negotiating team at the Taba talks with Egypt. He is the author of several books and is the founder and chairman of the Israel-Syria Peace Society. He is one of the instigators of an Israeli campaign to advance recognition of a Palestinian state by European parliaments and governments. Ziad AbuZayyad is a Palestinian lawyer, journalist, and politician. He is the co-founder and editor of the Palestine Israel Journal, a former Palestinian Authority minister, and former Minister of State in the Palestinian Authority. Ziad AbuZayyad served as an advisor to the Palestinian negotiating team in Washington, D.C. in 1992, and was a member of the post-Oslo negotiating team in 1994 that concluded the Cairo Agreement, which led to the establishment of the Palestinian Authority. In this episode, Alon, Ziad, and Alon discuss the prospects for the release of Marwan Barghouti, a Palestinian political leader who has been imprisoned since 2002. The three discuss Barghouti's political and peace efforts both prior to his imprisonment and while in prison, the perception of him as a widely uniting figure among the Palestinians, and what conditions in Israel will be necessary to allow for his release.
Good afternoon to both of you. Alon, my dear friend, going back, I don't know, many, many years. And Ziad AbuZayyad, just the same. I'm so delighted and grateful to both of you to be on this extremely important podcast. This is a subject matter that occupies both of you, and I know for many, many years, so did it occupied me for so many years. That is, who is Marwan Barghouti and why is he so central to eventually, I still believe, facilitate an agreement between Israel and the Palestinians. Before we start with this, I'd like to introduce both of you to our audience. Ziad AbuZayyad is a Palestinian lawyer, journalist, and politician. He's the co-founder and editor of the Palestine Israel Journal, a former Palestinian Authority minister, and a former Minister of State in the Palestinian Authority. Ziad AbuZayyad served as an advisor to the Palestinian negotiating team in Washington, D.C. in 1992, and was a member of the post-Oslo negotiating team in 1994 that concluded the Cairo Agreement, which led to the establishment of the Palestinian Authority. Again, thank you and welcome to this program. Alon Liel is a veteran of the Israeli Foreign Ministry, serving in various positions, including as Director General of the Foreign Ministry and as a member of the Israeli negotiating team at the Taba talks in Egypt. He is the author of several books and is founder and chairman of the Israel-Syria Peace Society. He's one of the instigator, remember, of the Israeli campaign to advance recognition of a Palestinian state by European Parliament and governments. Again, welcome to both of you, and thank you so much. So let me begin with you, Ziad. I'd just like to call it Ziad, or should I say Ziad AbuZayyad? How would you like me to address you?
First, let me just a slight correction. My family name is AbuZayyad.
AbuZayyad.
AbuZayyad with a stress on
AbuZayyad. I can pronounce it. Yeah,
AbuZayyad. You can call me both, Ziad, AbuZayyad, whatever. We're friends, and call me as a friend.
So AbuZayyad.
Whatever.
Well, again, so AbuZayyad, we are discussing today hopefully the prospective release of Marwan Barghouti, because he has been in prison now for the last, I believe, 20 plus years. He was charged with 5 murders, and he was sentenced to 5 life terms in prison. The 180 national parliaments concluded that Mr. Barghouti was not given a fair trial. So I'd like you just to tell our audience your thought on this first, and we can take it from there for a few minutes.
If you allow me first just to say a few words about Marwan. I knew Marwan Barghouti when he was the head of the Students' Council in Birzeit University. And after he was graduated, he worked with us at the Arab Council of International Affairs, which was led by myself and Zuhair al-Rayes, the late lawyer from Gaza, Zuhair al-Rayes, and Hanna Signora. And since then, we were friends. We met in different occasions. We worked in different joint forums until we both were elected members of the Palestinian Parliament. And that's where my relation and my work with Marwan was more intensive and more wide, and we have to communicate and cooperate on a daily basis. Marwan is a straight person. He's not cunning, he's not maneuvering, he says what he believes in, and that's why some people don't like him, even on the Palestinian side, or even within the Palestinian leadership circle. There are people who don't like him because he's straight. He says what he thinks. He's very honest with himself and with his friends. During the second Intifada, Marwan was critical of the occupation, was critical of how the Palestinian leadership was handling the affairs. But I can say that Marwan was not involved in any direct violent action. When he was brought to court, he took a position, which some people now say that it was not wise. He took a position that he do not recognize the legitimacy of the Israeli court, and that he is sure that the Israeli court will not be the court. It's not real justice. So he refused to defend himself, to bring evidences against the accusations, and he was sentenced for these life sentences. Marwan, since then, became a symbol of the Palestinian freedom fighters.
Right.
And for many Israelis, especially these days, Marwan became a symbol of their Palestinian enemy.
Right.
And they were stereotyping Marwan and character assassinating Marwan and representing Marwan as a dangerous terrorist killer, whatever you can say. And he became a subject for political campaign inside Israel itself. And even when you see the Minister of National Security in Israel goes to the jail, bring Marwan in front of him, shout at him, insult him, make bad things with him, and come out and give a video to the media how he was courageous and how he went to Marwan to his cell and how he insulted Marwan and how he humiliated Marwan and how he threatened Marwan. I believe that Marwan is the most credible, authentic, potential leader for the Palestinian national movement. And I think, and I believe, you know what, I tell you one thing, I forgot to say it. Marwan was the first Palestinian parliament member who brought a delegation of Knesset members to the Palestinian parliament in Ramallah. And he hosted a delegation from the Knesset, from the Labor and Meretz. He hosted them in the Palestinian Legislative Council in Ramallah. Marwan can do many things which some other Palestinians do not dare to do because they are are afraid and worried about their legitimacy on the Palestinian side. But Marwan knows himself, and he knows that the Palestinians know who is Marwan, and no one can dare to accuse Marwan that he is a collaborator with the Israelis, so he can do things that many other Palestinians don't dare to it. And here I come to the point that
If I may, before we get to that point, I'd like to ask Alon, along this same line, your take on it, and if you had any association with Marwan. Alon.
Thanks. I met Marwan first about 30 years ago. I was a mid-career diplomat coming back from my ambassadorship in South Africa. And we were a group of young, relatively young Israeli politicians and diplomats who were the contact people of the parallel Palestinians, young, upcoming Palestinians like Jibril Rajoub and Marwan Barghouti and Ziad AbuZayyad. And during the work on the implementation of Oslo, relations have been built on a personal level. At 1999, Barak won the elections, and I was appointed the contact person to Marwan. I knew him well before. In the first half of 99, we traveled together to Sweden, spent 3 full days of discussions under I think it was Uppsala University, or if I'm not wrong, and the Swedish Foreign Ministry. We were for Israelis, for Palestinians, so hours and hours together. Marwan always spoke on the possibility of 2 states along the 1967 border, living in peace with each other. The chemistry was very good. So when Barak sent me to Marwan after he won the elections, we started a certain dialogue that intended to restart negotiations. As you know, there was another round in the year 2000. It was not successful, but this was the time when I worked with Marwan closely, and from my end at least, a nice friendship was built then between the two of us.
So Marwan has been, one of the reasons that he has such a wide appeal among the Palestinians, because he was things, he was, resistant. He was able to resist openly, but he was also very pragmatic. So he knew all along that the only solution, that is peaceful solution between the two sides, is a solution based on a two-state solution. Do you feel, AbuZayyad, do you feel that one of the reasons that he was incarcerated and eventually sent to prison, 5 life sentence, that this was done also because the Israelis knew all along that he is a public consensus, he can create the consensus among the various factions within the Palestinian community, and in order to prevent him, because as you well know, Netanyahu in particular's policy was divide and conquer, and he did not want the Palestinian to have a single voice, and that's been his policy all along. Do you feel there was an element of that, to incarcerating Marwan will prevent the Palestinian from achieving the kind of unity that will bring closer to achieving their national objective?
I'm not sure that this was the motive for sentencing him when he was arrested. I think that was in 2005. I don't remember exactly. I don't think that when he was sentenced for these long terms in jail, that those who sentenced him were looking so much forward and wanted to keep in jail someone who believes in coexistence and who is advocate of the two-state solution. I think simply it was a military court, and the atmosphere during the second Intifada was very strong anti-Palestinian. Remember, at that time, there was the suicide operations of Hamas in the Israeli streets and buses. So the Israelis were very furious, and it was a kind of revenge, and especially that he did not defend himself. He did not ask his lawyer to argue and to bring evidences against these accusations. And I am sure that at that time, he did not believe that he would stay that long in jail. He thought that soon there will be a breakthrough in the political process and that he will be released. But later on, now the decision makers in Israel, they know that Marwan is a strong supporter of the two-state solution, and that there are Israelis and Palestinians who will support Marwan because he is in favor of the two-state solution. So they want to keep him in jail. What you just said, it is what is the Israeli position now, but it was not at the time of his sentence.
Right. So, Alon, so based on what you know, AbuZayyad says that Marwan Barghouti at the time did not feel that he needed to defend himself, given that the charges were so serious. Why do you feel, if that's the position he has in fact taken, why do you feel he felt that he doesn't need that?
Look, Marwan felt that as a Palestinian, an Israeli court doesn't have the authority to trial him. And he said, definitely not a civilian court. As far as I remember, he was not brought to a military court that has the authority on the West Bank. He was brought to a civilian court in Israel. And he said, we are under occupation. The legal authority in the West Bank, a legal Israeli authority, is the military. You put me on a civilian court, Israeli civilian court. This is not the place I should face. And this is the reason he asked not to be defended professionally. Maybe today you can say it was a mistake because, you know, I spoke with top people in Israel, top security people, and Marwan was the head of the Tanzim. He was in an office. What happened, Tanzim people were involved in military operation and were caught. He was convicted for their deeds. And, you know, again, Israeli professionals said, as Ziad AbuZayyad just said, that he had no personal involvement in these cases. But I think, Alon, this all happened in 2002, 2003. We have a new reality now, and I think it is much more important in the time we have to focus not on what Marwan Barghouti did or did not do, but on what Marwan Barghouti can do now.
Absolutely. I'm going to get to that point. I just wanted to establish, because obviously, I mean, when you say he did not want to be judged by a civilian court rather than a military court, as a rule, under martial law and military court, the sentence would have been even more severe. But be that as it may, absolutely, our focus today is going to be, and it is, Marwan Barghouti, as well known, everybody knows among the Palestinians as well as among the Israelis, is a consensus builder. This is a man, if he were to be released by the Israeli government, is a man who can, in fact, mobilize the Palestinian from the extreme left to the extreme right and present a united front that is able and willing to negotiate with Israel a peaceful agreement. he has that capacity, and even in recent election that's been taking place, he actually was the number one on top of the list. So my question to both of you, starting with Abu Ziyad, what is going to take? We know that he is a building consensus, consensus building. We know that he can deliver. We know that he's admired by the Palestinians. But the Israelis, given the environment today, in the wake of the Gaza war, and the Israeli consensus that is believed, as you well know, majority of Israelis oppose a Palestinian state. So the environment today is not conducive at all, from my perspective, to having any kind of dialogue with the Palestinians. Do you feel that if Marwan Barghouti to be released, this could change the dynamic that exists today, especially now given there's an election coming up, potentially a new government? Is this the right time to make such a push for his release?
Well, if I may, Alon, would you allow me to start?
Please.
Yeah, the question was
Yeah.
to you, Ziad.
Was to
Okay.
you, Abu Ziyad. The big question was to you.
Thank you. Listen, to change the mood in Israel today, there is only one hope, and that hope is in October 27th, when there will be elections in Israel. Israel now is on a crossroad. Either the current fascist, racist, crazy, messianic spirit will continue to reign Israel and will bring Israel to a very dangerous place, or there will be a change in the Israeli political system. This will change. This will change the mood in Israel. Not the release of Marwan. This is one thing. So I'm one of those who are looking forward. What would be the outcome of the Israeli elections, even if there will be another right-wing government? But any government in Israel without people like Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, it could be better than the current government, and it may try to de-escalate the situation in Israel. This is one thing. The other thing which I want to say, Alon Liel just said that we should not judge Marwan but by what he did, but what he may do. I want to emphasize the fact that Marwan was not by any means and any way involved in any direct act of violence against Israelis. Alon said it clearly that he was the head of the Tanzim, and maybe some members of the Tanzim carried activities of resistance against the Israeli occupation. But this doesn't mean that they had orders from Marwan or Marwan was involved in what they were doing. That's not true. So Marwan is a freedom fighter. He's a political prisoner. He was judged for these long terms in jail only because he refused to recognize the legitimacy of the Israeli court, because he is against the occupation, and because there were elements within the Palestinian political map who did not like Marwan, and maybe they wanted to see Marwan inside the Israeli jails.
Alon, Abu Ziyad says that, he's hoping that, of course, there'll be hopefully a new government. The likelihood that such a government will be led by Eisenkopf, who currently in the leading the in the polls in Israel, and he will be able to form more centrist government. That is at least what the polls are suggesting today. But when I examined, his position, he may be more lenient. He may be more, compassionate, let us say, toward the Palestinian. But he said it very clearly that he has no intention of pursuing two-state solution. And as a matter of fact, even today, he doesn't want even to include Israeli Palestinian parties in his government. So he is still stuck with the general Israeli public opinion, pretty much against the Palestinian statehood. Do you think, along what Abu Ziyad just said, suppose Eisenkopf does form the next government, with a campaign to release Marwan Barghouti would be my feeling is that should be. What's your take? Let's say there is a new government in Israel.
Yeah. Um, I will relate to several levels of your question. First, I'm sure that once Marwan is released, we will face a different reality in the Israeli-Palestinian relations. The enthusiasm around his release and his personality, his charisma, his wish to move ahead will dramatically change things among the Palestinians, not only Fatah, also Hamas. We have to remember that in 2006, when he was in jail, Marwan Barghouti arranged the agreement between the Fatah and the Hamas prisoners. So Marwan is acceptable by all Palestinian groups today. And as you said, there was a test just 2 months ago, and he came out first in elections, not in polls. In the
Right,
polls, it's
election, yes.
so. First of all, there will be a dramatic change in the similar to the one that the Mandela release had in South Africa.
Right.
But I want to add here something. I don't think this government, for sure, and I don't think the future Israeli government after the 27th of October will release Marwan voluntarily. The only way Marwan can be released is under pressure, under international pressure. It has to be a Palestinian consensus and demand, an international demand, and especially an American demand or request. I have the feeling that if it's Eisenkot or anyone else leading Israel from the end of October, if one of the first requests of the President Trump will be to release Barghouti, he will do it. He will not do it voluntarily because there is not enough support among the Jewish Israeli public to release him. But if it will come up as a demand or as a request from the international community, it will change things. You must remember that we released 250 prisoners that we had for life with the exchange of our hostages
Right.
in Gaza. So even then, we did not release willingly. It came in a deal. So it has to be part of an international, massive international involvement after an international campaign. And I think it will be a game changer because the government, Israeli government that will release him might also examine or will have to examine the situation that will be created after his release. Now people tell me you were a friend of Barghouti 25 years ago. Last time, by the way, I spoke with him was days before he was arrested, and he was very consistent on the issue of two states. How do you know that today he's still consistent on the matter? So I don't know because nobody can see him. Even his family cannot see him. We don't know exactly what he thinks today. But knowing him before, knowing his family, his sons now who are campaigning for his release, and especially, I think, my Mandela record. These type of leaders, mega leaders, mega charismatic, they're not changing views in jail. They are leading their people from jail too. And on the 28th of November, there will be also probably Palestinian elections, and he might run from jail. So even if he's not released, but is winning the Palestinian elections from jail, it is also a possible game changer.
Well, I mean, I agree with you in principle. That is, obviously, international community has to exert considerable pressure on any Israeli government to do just that. But you mentioned President Trump. Based on what I know about President Trump, I don't think he'll be willing to take such an act at this particular juncture, given what he's been doing. And yes, his relationship with Netanyahu is not a great. Has deteriorated in the last couple of months. And he does not have any relationship with potentially Eisenkopf and others. So knowing, is a Mercurian such as Trump, you never know what he's going to do next. It's possible, but there's no question. A pressure from the United States is a sine qua non to bring about if there's going to be any chance of releasing Marodi. But other than the United States, I'd like to explore with both of you what other means are there for us to employ. I'm personally now waging this campaign. This is part of the campaign, and because I absolutely believe that his release is central, not just for the Palestinian, it's for Israel's future itself. That is, Israel today, in my view, cannot have long-term security unless there is a solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. That is, their security is intertwined. And it is an illusion on the part of the Israelis to portray the Palestinian state as an existential threat to Israel. I think it's completely to the contrary. Only a Palestinian state can bring about stability and long-term security for the state of Israel. So the Israeli public need to understand that, because they're bought into this narrative, false narrative, that the Netanyahu government has been promoting for so many years, and they bought it. So let me just go back. I'd like to explore with you, as I said, what other means. Let us say Trump will not act for a variety of reasons. He's still wedded to the MAGA movement. He's still wedded to the evangelicals, etc. What other means? Can we explore this together? Because this is a part of a campaign that ought to take place, to strike roots. AbuZayyad, any other ideas that you feel that can be explored here to accelerate, to bring about Marwan's release?
Well, I have to answer your questions by developing what Alon said lately and trying to carry it further on. First of all, Marwan is not only accepted to Hamas, he is, in my opinion, he is the only Palestinian who can unify all the Palestinian political factions, including Hamas and the Jihad and the Fatah. He is the most qualified person because all the internal and personal disputes and fights which were taking place during the last 20 years, Marwan was not part of these things. And he is wise enough to keep strings with everyone, so he is the most qualified one to represent a national unity leader. And as Alon said, he initiated the prisoners' document for national conciliation, which included not only Hamas, but the representatives of all the other factions in the Israeli jails. This is one thing. The other point, which I want to carry on from what Alon said, an international campaign to release Marwan Barghouti is not enough. I think after the new government in Israel, there must be an international campaign to pressure Israel to resume a political process to end the Israeli occupation. And the political process to end the Israeli occupation, the most potential Palestinian leader who is capable and accepted and legitimized by the Palestinian people to lead such a process is Marwan Barghouti. So fighting and arguing and lobbying for the release of Marwan al-Barghouti should be part of an international campaign to pressure Israel to end the occupation and to start a political process conducive to a political solution of the conflict after this genocide war in Gaza, after all these things happening, terrible things happening in the West Bank, after the settlers, terrorists attacking villages and towns, attacking property, burning houses, burning cars, burning fields, there must be an international campaign to protect the Palestinians in the occupied territories and to reverse the process in the direction of trying to find a solution. And this campaign is not built only on Trump, because we all know that Trump can say this thing and its opposite in the same minute, and he can say things which he never do. One time Trump said that when he was asked about Marwan Barghouti, he said, yes, I heard about this guy. And some people thought that maybe Trump will interfere for the release of Marwan Barghouti, and he did nothing. So again, there should be a campaign to reverse the process and to start a political solution to the conflict to end the occupation.
Yeah, but Ziad, I mean, we've been in this before, and Israel has been consistently defiant of the international consensus about the occupation. So I mean, obviously an end to the occupation is a prerequisite to Palestinian statehood. But when you say international pressure, we need to quantify who is international pressure, where that's going to come from.
Let me just now we see.
I want Alon to comment on this. Alon, 2 points I wanted to comment on. When you said initially that his release will create a new excitement among the Israeli public, I'd like you to elaborate on that. Given the Israeli consensus today, as I know it, they are dead set against the Palestinian statehood. Why would they be excited about the release of Marwan? That's one question. And going back, I'd like you to quantify, to the extent you can, where this international coming from? International is a very wide concept. We need to quantify that in order to really have any kind of campaign that have any prospect of moving this process forward. Can you address these two issues as briefly as you can, so that we can have more discussion about it?
Yeah, I will.
Well, I think we could if we don't see the changes which are taking place in different countries in the world against Israel because of what the Israelis are doing. If we don't see this, we are politically blind.
And I agree with you.
If we don't see the change within the new generation of Europeans and Americans, we are blind. So there are now countries in Europe which are considering using sanctions against Israel if Israel resumes building in the project called E1 near Male Adumim. So in my opinion, the climate and the national climate is ripe now, is good now to try to advocate and prompt and start a national campaign against the Israel occupation and to change the situation. Now, it is not now 100% as we want it to be, but maybe, and there will be a new government in Israel, it will be easier for them. And don't forget that a leader who is the one who can change the mood in the street. And there are leaders who listen to the mood in the street and change themselves according to the mood in the street. So
I agree with you on that. The point is, there's no question he has the support consensus among the Palestinians. We are 100%. I just want to focus on the other issue. It's in my view, international pressure in and of itself, regardless where it comes from, whether the United States, European community, the United Nations, other countries involved. I mean, the real pressure can come really in three bodies, two in particular. United States is number one, the EU is number two. The United Nations is third, fourth. And there are no really other powers around the world that can exert any significant pressure on Israel. But in my view alone, I wanted to address the first question I asked you, but also, I absolutely believe that is, if there is no public consensus among the Israelis, that is, we've got to change the public consensus among the Israelis. That's where the change is going to have to come from. Who is going to affect that change? That is what's necessary. You can agree or disagree. Please talk to this point.
Look, first of all, I'm supporting the release of Marwan Barghouti as an Israeli patriot, not as a Palestinian patriot.
Okay.
I think that the fact that Israel dropped the idea of two states and is widening the occupation in a brutal way is suicidal.
I agree.
My point of view, the release of Barghouti from jail can save peace and by this save Israel. So this is the basic assumption. Now, you mentioned enthusiasm among the Israelis. It will not create enthusiasm among the Israelis. It will, I hope, create enthusiasm among the Palestinians, but it can be a game changer from the point of view that the world will focus again on a Palestinian leader who is the coming generation, let's say the generation after Abu Mazen, who is having a very high credibility after 25 years in jail, with ruining your family, ruining your health, you are becoming a more credible and trustable leader. So from this point of view, it can change the momentum. I didn't speak on Israel's enthusiasm, but I want to relate one second alone to what is the international community. What
Yes,
is the international? Look, Israel at the moment, and this is my profession, is in its worst, it is in its lowest international standing ever.
I agree 100% with you. Absolutely.
Created by many things, by the protest against what happened in Gaza, by the recognition of 166 states of Palestine, by deploring the expansion of the settlements, the brutality of the settlers. This is creating a situation that Israel became an international outcast.
A pariah state. I agree.
In Europe with 3 grandchildren, and all the time I kept begging them, don't speak Hebrew in the street, don't speak Hebrew, it's dangerous. So the fact that we have such a low international standing is making the pressure more effective, maybe not with this government that doesn't care about the world, but I'm sure it will have an impact on the future government. Now, the United States did not recognize Palestine yet, and even not Germany and not Japan and not Italy, but they cannot ignore the fact that 160 countries did recognize. Now, regarding the protest of the settlements and settlers, this is changing not only the image of Israel, it is changing the image of us as Israelis and of you abroad as Jews. I mean, it is, and the Israeli public will feel it. Now, I'm coming to Barghouti. The chance to release Barghouti with under pressure is much bigger than the chance to create a Palestinian state or end the settlements. To create a Palestinian state at the moment, there is a consensus in the Jewish public that it's not feasible, not doable. And the occupation, 500,000, 600,000, but to release one person that is sitting now 25 years in jail and 3.5 before, because he was in jail before we released him and brought him back in when we had Oslo. So I think the likelihood of the release of Barghouti to be a game changer is bigger than if tomorrow Italy and Holland will join the recognition
I
issue.
agree with you. I agree with you. I just want to, Alon, I want to address the point. We all agree his release is a game changer. There's no question about it. There's no question. We also agree that international pressure is necessary, wherever this can come from, United States, EU, etc. My point here is that we need to have Israeli public consensus as well. There isn't an election. I want to advance a plan of action. That is, after this podcast, I'd like to continue this campaign. There's an election. I'm asking both of you, do you feel there's going to be hopefully there'll be a new prime minister? Most likely, as I said earlier, potentially is Eisenkopf to be the one. Do you feel that this is the time now to start this campaign? to put that kind, to bring this to the fore, talking to now and telling the Israelis, if you want peace and if you want security, Palestinian statehood is a must. And to achieve that, releasing Barouti is almost like a precondition to achieve that. What I'm trying to ask you, both of you, what steps can be taken? Let us say there is a new government. What can we do with the new government in order to bring about a momentum, to create a momentum to the release of Marwan Barghouti? And let's just focus on that, because I want to have a sort of a plan. What can we do beyond? We all agree his release is a sine qua non. We all agree that international pressure is necessary. We agree on that. Let us now talk about steps. There is a new government to go. Let's talk about steps, specific steps. Can you, AbuZayyad, please give me steps that you feel can be taken, not a hypothetical ones, real steps that can be taken in order to accelerate, to bring about his release, given that it's going to be a new Israeli government.
First of all, it's hard to speak about the coming Israeli government because we don't know who will come, who will be.
We are assuming, let's assume there's going to be a new Israeli government.
No, it's still very difficult to predict who will be the next Israeli government. And there are still new parties. The right wing are bringing in new faces. The competition is who more right, who is more patriot, who is more national. So it's not difficult to speak about the next Israeli government. This is one thing. The other thing, there is a poisonous machine which was poisoning the minds of the Israelis for about a quarter century, even more than a quarter century. And I said earlier, there is a kind of character assassination against Marwan, making Marwan the Satan, the most terrible, dangerous terrorist, that any speech about his release will immediately invite a very hard and tough response from the Israeli right-wing public against Marwan release. So to speak about Marwan release, even with the next government in Israel, will not be an easy thing.
But when we agree, it's not going to be easy.
Okay.
What I'm looking for, really, what I'm looking for, and you are pointing the difficulties. We know there are many difficulties, but we are assuming, because with the current, let's say Netanyahu is re-elected, the likelihood that Marwan Barghouti be released is zero. It will not, no matter where the pressure comes from. It's not going to happen. Israel has been defined and will continue to be even more defined if Netanyahu is re-elected and he will feel even more emboldened. So I just want to work with because we need to look for a path forward. So you are pointing the difficulties. I understand that. But we have to assume for a moment there is a new government. What will we do? What can we do in order to promote this idea? Because we all agree it is central to changing the dynamic of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Alon, can you address this point?
I'll give you what you are asking for, steps.
That's what we have to talk about solution.
Steps. Step number one.
Yes.
Right now, you know who is the Israeli person responsible for jails, responsible for Marwan Barghouti now. His name is Ben-Gvir, Itamar Ben-Gvir. First step to remove Ben-Gvir from the position of Minister for National Security.
Alon, let's talk about new government. We know that this government, if there's another right-wing government, a fascist like this one, it isn't going to happen. I want to address what is there be new government. What steps can we take then?
I'm telling you, even if there will be a government headed by Yair Golan or by Mansour Abbas, and Ben-Gvir stays Minister for National Security, Barghouti will not be released.
Well, of course not. We're not talking about Ben-Gvir was a crazy guy.
This is the reality of Israel. The Minister of National Security is in charge of prison, and he has to sign for the release. First of all, he has to, the chance that Ben-Gvir will stay Minister of National Security is low, is very low. In
I think
order
it's, I think
for
it's
one
zero.
second,
If Eisenkopf is reforming the government, he is not going to take Ben-Gvir to his government. It's not
okay,
going to happen.
this is number one. If Eisenkopf is the prime minister and we have a different Minister of Internal Security, let's say Yair Golan,
Okay, let's
it's
take step one.
now, this is regarding Israel itself. As long as Ben-Gvir is in charge of Barghouti, he will not be released. Now, internationally, there is a beginning of a campaign in Europe. You don't feel any of it in the United States yet, any of it. If you can arrange a concert in Wembley, London, or I just was in the semi-final in the Atlanta Stadium, if you fill up a concert with 70,000 people, with the best artists in the Western world calling for the release of Barghouti, it's an earthquake in Israel. It's an earthquake. We have the Israeli public has to feel that the Barghouti factor is acting, that there is a Barghouti factor, that there is in the eyes of the international community and in the eyes of the Palestinian people, there is a leader that can lead to peace, actively, credible, popular, charismatic. So the Israeli public has to hear about this kind of a campaign or protest from the international community. These two things are a must. A different minister for internal security and a stronger campaign, especially in the United States. You have a lot of pro-Palestinian politicians now in the United States. I still didn't hear any one of them mentioning Barghouti.
But Alon, you keep emphasizing Ben-Gvir. I don't think Ben-Gvir is a factor if there is a new government. So, you're not addressing any other component, any other steps within Israel. I mean, to suggest that only international pressure is going to change the Israeli public opinion, I disagree with that. You are going to have a grassroots movement. No, let me finish, please. In Israel itself, who Barghouti, the Minister for National Security, whoever that might be, is going to be bound by what the Prime Minister wants. And let us assume there is a new Prime Minister, which is potentially Eisenkopf, maybe Lieberman. We don't know the craziness about how the Israeli coalition eventually is going to be formed, other than Netanyahu. And so we're going to have a different kind of national security minister. That's fine. But what else can be done in Israel to, other than international public opinion or pressure? There's got to be something within Israel itself. Who is going to bring about a new narrative? Have to have a new narrative. AbuZayyad, can you address this particular point, please?
Yes, yeah, listen. Let's first look what the Israelis did to Marwan. They normalized Marwan personality as a terrorist. They succeeded in dehumanizing Marwan. What we had to do an opposite campaign to show the human face of Marwan, to represent Marwan to the Israeli public in a different way than he was represented to them by this, what I call the poisonous machine of the extreme fanatic right wing in Israel.
Right.
We can think about carrying a number of activities, a number of things, meetings, discussions, to focus and to show the real image and the real face of Marwan Barghouti, and not the image which they created for Marwan Barghouti. I think this podcast, and
I think it's a very important step. I agree with you.
The first part of this podcast, when we are speaking about Marwan Barghouti, I think it's very important. It's very important to make the people realize and understand that Marwan Barghouti is not a terrorist. He's a political activist. He's a political leader. He's a political prisoner. He's a human being. And we should continue this kind of activities, podcasts, meetings, discussions, conferences, As Alon said, the concerts, public meetings, bringing international well-known figures to speak about the release of Marwan. These things, the aim of them is to confront with the brainwash which was made to the Israeli public against Marwan, and to let people understand the reality about Marwan. It should be a long process, a long campaign, accompanied, as I said earlier, with an international campaign to restart a political process, not the Palestinian state. Alon says that there is a consensus in Israel against the Palestinian state. The Israelis have to realize that they cannot keep the situation as it is forever. That the only outcome from this situation, either a democratic state with the annexation of the West Bank, or a separation between a Palestinian state and an Israel state. And this is what the campaign has to be about.
We have only a couple of minutes left. Well, I'm asking, your point, changing perception about Marwan Barghouti in Israel is
Yes,
extremely
in
important.
Israel and in the world.
Perception of him being a terrorist has to be dealt with, and that's changing perception. Along these lines alone, what else can be done in Israel? I think meetings and changing the narrative in Israel, all of that is critically important. That's a part of a campaign. Is there anything else can be done within Israel other than international? And I agree with you, international concert, bringing great artists to demand that. I think it's extremely helpful. Let's just focus on another dimension within Israel. Is there any other thing you can do?
Look, Alon, you pushed us in the last few minutes to an irrelevant corner. The question of the release of Marwan doesn't need an Israeli consensus. There will not be a referendum about it. It's not the issue of a peace agreement. It's an issue, it's an administrative issue. The guy is 25 years in jail. By the way, our president can sign his release, has the authority to give him immunity. It's not, the Israeli public doesn't have to be asked about it. I agree that if before a peace treaty with the Palestinians, the Israeli public should express its views. But the release of Marghouti is not in the magnitude of a peace agreement. And
Well, of course, we agree on that.
But Alon, there will be no Israeli leader who will dare to go direct against the Israeli public. There should be some part of Israeli public understanding of the importance of the release of Marwan Barghouti.
That's because it's Alon. It's linked. The AbuZayyad is right. It's linked. Release of Barghouti represents another releasing.
If I was the next prime minister of Israel, I need some public to be with me.
But releasing him represents a step, important step. That is a step toward reconciliation with the Palestinians. That's what it means. This is why the Israeli public have a say here. It's not that you need permission. Of course, the president of Israel can release him. But I'm saying to you, you've got to create a movement within Israel itself. Other than releasing him, you release him is not good enough. You have to have, because he represents something. Releasing him means Israel is want to move toward reconciliation with the Palestinians. That's what it means. Like what happened with Nelson Mandela. That's what I'm trying to get to.
To disagree. I beg to disagree.
Fine.
When the South African government started in jail the talks with Mandela, they didn't ask anyone in South Africa. The Minister of Justice went to jail, quietly spoke with him. We didn't even start talking with him. The issue of Barghouti's release is, first of all, a technical, legal issue. The president, by the way, you know, Trump is putting pressure on our president to remove the legal charges against Netanyahu. It can happen together. Our president can sign, if Netanyahu will be convicted, the release of Netanyahu and Barghouti together. I mean, it's a technical move. It's not a peace treaty. Don't make out of it a peace treaty.
No. But now you mentioned an important point. You can link these two. I'm talking about these kind of things that need to be taken. You are taking also what I'm saying out of context. What I am
But you
saying,
are linking between the
to bring
liberation
his
of a
release, to
freedom
bring his
fighter with the
release.
liberation of a corrupted person.
The whole point is
This linkage, it's a disgrace for Marwan Barghouti.
this point is, its point is,
It's not a good point alone.
I,
We have to do some part of the job on the Israeli public opinion to change the image of Marwan in the eyes of some Israelis, not all the Israelis, and to help the next leader in Israel to
We
bring Marwan out and to
finally,
carry international campaign and pressure against Israel to release Marwan Barghouti within the frame of a political process leading to this resolution of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. It's a complicated issue, but it has to start, and the first step will be the release of Marwan Barghouti to build confidence and to allow people to look on the situation in a different manner than they are looking now.
and which I agree with. His release is in the context of moving forward toward negotiating a solution with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
It's not only release Marwan Barghouti, release
Yeah.
Marwan Barghouti because we want to start a process of
Yeah.
resolving the conflict.
That's what I am saying. Alon,
And he is more capable to lead such a project on the Palestinian side.
I agree with you. Alon, you have a reservation about that. Can you take
yeah,
a
I really disagree.
We're running out of time. Let's take a couple more minutes.
On this issue, I really disagree with both of you. We can release Marwan and he will sign that he's going to Venezuela, let's say. Or
He will
he
not
can
go out. He will go nowhere.
One second. The conditions of release will have to be negotiated with Barghouti personally. Now, we don't have to release him now. The new government will have to start talking with him instead of beating him, instead of humiliating him.
I'm for that. I'm not against that.
We agree
That's
with
a good start. That is a good start.
And quietly start speaking with Marwan on the conditions of his release. If the conditions will make sense to the new government, they can present it to the president, and maybe even to the public. It doesn't have to be a referendum. We must have a referendum if we withdraw from the Golan Heights, or if we withdraw but not if we withdraw from, we release Barghouti. Please don't make of the issue of the release of Barghouti a bigger issue than it really is. By the way, we can release him on health conditions. He's in a bad health. And we don't have much time. He might die.
Yeah, again, you're separating the two important issues, and I agree with AbuZayyad about it. If you want to release, you're not going to release him without a consensus of the new Israeli government, which means you're going to have to get the new prime minister to agree in principle. He's got to be released for whatever reason he wants to be released. But this suggests something else, like we said earlier, that has to be in the context of why is he going to be released, other than even for health reason. That's not going to be enough. Everybody knows he represents a consensus of the Palestinian public. That is, his release has to be a conduit for something bigger than that. And the link is clear. It should be clear to everyone, to Israelis as well as to the Palestinians. You cannot isolate his release from what AbuZayyad is correctly saying, that should lead to some beginning a dialogue with the Palestinians, because he is the consensus builder. You know,
And Alon, if you just one more sentence, Alon Liel, a human Marwan Barghouti release is not a humanitarian issue. We are talking about it. Wait a minute. We are talking about it as a political issue. We are talking about Marwan as the most qualified, capable national leader who can lead his people towards a political process to bring a solution, two-state solution. If we say go release, talk with him, make a deal, send him to Jordan, send him to Egypt. We are not asking the release of Marwan for the sake of Marwan. We are asking for the release of Marwan because we see him as a potential leader to to take a major active role in bringing a political solution to the conflict, in making peace against the Israelis and the Palestinians. This is what we are talking all the time. I heard it from you.
Yeah.
Why did you change your mind?
You are
But
absolutely correct, because if Marwan did not have that position, we will not have this conversation
Marwan
today.
is not a miskin. He's not a poor guy sitting in
but
jail.
Ziad,
Get
Ziad, I
him
live in
guilty,
Israel.
bring him out of the
One
jail.
second.
No, he's a
But
national leader. We want to treat him as a national leader, as Mandela, as you said, and he will be asked to carry a process of national reconciliation on the Palestinian side and between the two peoples.
but
Alon,
I live in Israel.
give me,
One second. One second.
Alon, 1 second, 1 second, please. Make it a brief. The floor is yours, and I'd like to conclude this. Go ahead, please.
I live in Israel. I know the mood here. If you will wait for the majority of Israelis to agree to the release of Maguti, he will die in jail.
I did not say that.
Second,
No, I did not say that.
Saying that.
you said
I
it.
wanted to be released today, not tomorrow.
It has to be done in an administrative way to present it to the Israeli public. You don't have to ask the Israeli public, definitely not the Jewish Israeli public. If the leadership, Eisenkot, or take it anyone else in the next government, will feel that it can help in any way, even to improve the Israeli image abroad, even to minimize the European and American pressure, he can decide on it on its own. Don't make it an issue of the whole Israeli public. Otherwise,
I agree with you.
We agree. We absolutely agree.
I agree with you. We want them to be released today, not tomorrow.
What we are saying, let me just put this into one, conclude this so that we are not saying you need a permission. We're saying if you have a new leadership, the new leadership in Israel, the new prime minister, should be talked to by international community, by whoever bodies within or without outside Israel, that his release would be not an act of mercy, but as a strategic necessity. As a necessity in order to move the Israeli-Palestinian conflict from this dead center, which is not getting worse, is not getting any better. That has to be a critically important point to emphasize. Now, what I'm saying now, what we need to think, this is going to be a new government. I always look for a solution. And that's we have to begin this by trying to create, first of all, begin to change perception. Israeli public opinion is important. You don't need to vote on it, but you have to begin to change the narrative in Israel itself, not just about his release, but about the need to move towards some kind of reconciliation with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, because it's in Israel's interest, not just the Palestinians. It's in Israel's short and long-term interest. Again, I want to go ahead. You want to say something, last word on your part?
Thank you. Only to thank you.
Thank you.
The idea issue again.
It's my pleasure. Thank you both so much for taking the time. Every minute we spend on this is extremely worth every second of it. Releasing Marwan Barghouti is not releasing an individual for mercy or for compassion. It is releasing him for far greater objective. Potentially bridge the gap, bring about a resolution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, which has exacted so much suffering, so much death, so much agony, not to speak of what happened in the last 3 years as a result of Hamas's attack and Israeli horrific retaliation. We've got to do something about that to prevent that from ever happening again. And his release is his first step, critical, to move in that direction. Thank you so much again for taking the time.
Very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now. Thank you for listening to this episode on the issues. You can find this podcast on my SoundCloud page, and stay tuned to my social media accounts for the latest analysis and announcements.